Good afternoon, members. If you are in the building, please make your way. Good afternoon, members, and to the viewing public. Before we get into the budget hearing, I'd like to welcome the Secretary of Staffler and her team to today's budget hearing. Um, and before we have you sit in, I would like to get a ask for a motion to adopt today's agenda. There has been a motion to adopt today's agenda, has been seconded. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. I believe we have a quorum. Uh, and before we have the um, secretary make her opening statement, I would like to introduce the Ways and Means Committee to the Department of Labor. To my left, we have Vice Chair Blas Attal. To my right, we have Member Vice Speaker Joel Camacho. And down to my left, we have representative from the island of Rhoda, Chairwoman Julie Ogo. To her left, we have the chairman of SNILD, Representative John Paul Sablan. We have the chairman of Natural Resources, Representative Angelo Camacho. We have our vice chair for SNILD, Representative Roman Benaventi. And to his left, we have the chairman of Education, Representative Manny Gregory Castro. And to his left, we have chairwoman of JGO, Marissa Flores. And thank you, Ms. Vicky. We have OMB here for those members that may have questions to the budget. To our left, we have our minority leader from the second senator district, Representative Patrick San Nicolas. Say hi, Leia, to your. To his left, we have Representative Danita Yankamai, and to her left, we have member Representative TJ Manglonia. We have Miss Claire, our legislative assistant, along with TG and our financial analyst and our counsel, John. And John Diaz. Thank you. Um, Now, before we move on to the statement, is there anyone in the gallery that would like to make comments, public statement? Being there's none, I'll now invite our secretary to please approach, and if you have your team members, so if you want them to join, please. Thank you, Secretary Staffler, for making yourself present. I know you had a earlier speech today, and we discussed that so that the public is aware with regards to the touchback. We'll ask some questions regarding, and we will inform the public as to what's going on, as well as to your budget. I believe the administration gave you more, so there's really nothing to discuss today. Uh, you got more than what you requested, so there's really nothing, right? I think we should adjourn. And with that, and in all honesty, thank you for making yourself available today. And with that, I'll now to your opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you all members who are here today, whether you're on the committee or sitting in a capacity to just join in. Thank you for making your time. It's nice to see you all. I hope you've all got a copy of our budgets. I know some of you had asked for updated organizational charts. I think that's one thing that I wanted to bring to your attention. I did send you an email, Chairman, of what is in our regulations in Title 80 doesn't actually match what we've been passing in our budgets year after year. And so that would be one place that I'd definitely like to work with you on updating in our regs. I actually did send you more information about that, including the LSR that I would also be asking about regarding that. So just to start there. But thank you for giving us this time. The Department of Labor has been hard at work realigning its systems to ensure that we are able to meet the workforce needs of our community, especially with lots of people looking for work and lots of employers looking for workers. It's all the more important that we really make sure that we get our feet on the ground and provide the services out there so that we can close that gap. I have my team here today, and I'll spend a little time introducing each of them. And with their support, we've been really working hard towards these big movements in our department. So I will just start here on my far right. We have Ms. Frances Torres. She is in charge of the WIOA program, Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. And she provides the training and education leg of our offices. She's also in charge of our apprenticeship program, which we have a lot of great movement and seeing that take off in this last year. And so we'd love to continue that kind of work. And other federal programs that she continues to bring to our CNMI. And if you have questions about that, I'm sure she will be able to answer. To my direct right is our Division of Employment Services, Mr. Eugene Tebeteb. He is the one in charge of all of the data that is received by the businesses in the CNMI. Every time a business plans to hire a foreign labor worker, they are required to put their JVA in our systems, which is the data that we use to report to all of you when you're asking about what kind of workforce needs there are that are especially related to CW permits. That is the direct correlation. And his office manages that, in addition to making sure that people who are looking for work, whether they're in our social service programs like food stamp or any other, if they're just anyone off the street who wants to put their name in the system to be linked up through any of the employers who are also looking for work or workers, that's what his division provides service to. So he is our data man, one of them. To my left is our administrative hearing judge officer. She is running our administrative hearing office. Her name is Ms. Jackie Nicholas. She is a certified administrative hearing judge, one of the only ones in the CNMI. That is part of the budget packet that you received, so you can learn more about that. It's actually really interesting to learn about the different areas of due process that exist in our systems of judicial efforts out there. And her office is really important, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later with respect to the budget request, because she actually provides services to more than just the Department of Labor, but also to other agencies that require and provide due process hearings in their regulations. And then behind me, I have Mr. Rio Mostales. He is our main finance guy up at the Department of Labor. He handles our local accounts. And behind him, I have a lot of other team members. Department of Labor has a very strong team, so I'm very proud to be with them. Directly behind me is Auntie Pat Camacho. She runs and works with our HRO, and she manages our PUA renewal process. That one is very extensive because she must do the renewals 4 times a year. PUA contracts are renewed every quarter. They are limited term in a sense that all our PUA staff are renewed every quarter. So she's always busy. Right, Auntie Pat? And then next to her is James Uzoa. He works with Mr. Eugene Tebeteb in Employment Services. He's also our other data man. He is who prepares a lot of our reports, especially for the GAO, Government Accountability Office, I believe. Yes. And then behind him and the rest of our team, Frances Tudela in the back there. She is working with Miss Frances Torres. We got our Kai and Kai. And then the rest of my team, there are a representative of our PUA managers. And so Zach Tenorio, oh my gosh, sorry, Zach. I'm getting nervouser as this is going. Zach manages the PUA program overall. He manages our reports to the PUA federal officers, and anytime we have questions, he's on top of all our regulations. He could tell you how many times the rules have changed. Right next to him is Mr. Vince Sablan. He is in charge of our BPC, Benefit Payment Control. So they do the auditing. He and his team have been highly trained in fraud detection with respect to PUA payouts and such. And so his area really focuses on making sure that the people who applied were the right ones to get the funding and protecting those funds from fraud. And then behind him, we have Miss Lynn Y. You're right, Timo. She is who manages our PUA funding and grants. And then right next to her is Miss Aggie Camacho, and she is in charge of our call center. And so I believe that's everyone in the room from my team. I think the only person who is not here with us today is Mr. Joe Pangolin. He is in charge of the adjudication, so the step before the auditing in the PUA program. And Jeff. Oh, shoot. Is Jeff here? Okay, I apologize. No problem. So one of our most important divisions is enforcement, and that would be Mr. Jeff Camacho, also known as Deacon, and he is not here this moment. I apologize for his absence, but we can definitely answer any questions with respect to enforcement if you have any. And that concludes my opening statement. Thank you all.
Thank you, Secretary Staffler. And before we ask questions, I ask the members that we direct the questions for now strictly on the budget. And as soon as we're done with the budget, then we can ask an update regarding, I believe there's some members that want to ask about PUA and the touchback. So before we touch into that, we want to go through the budget and then update. Okay, are all good with that? Thank you. And I will now recognize my vice chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but I'll yield to the members of the committee before I ask questions.
Okay, the floor is open, members. Are we scared of the Department of Labor?
I think the members are afraid because Secretary's been looking at the budget the last couple of years, so it's not as much. But I think Rep. Flores can go first.
Recognize.
And again, we cannot speak here unless we're recognized, so I had to wait patiently for him to recognize me. Thank you, Chair. So thank you, Leila, Ms. Secretary, and your team for coming. I think I'm just going to focus mainly on the administrative hearing officer. I noticed that you have Ms. Jackie or Attorney Jackie here who acts as your administrative officer. Can you tell me, but there's two in your budget. So why, and one is at 90%, is this still your current workforce or your team in this division or this department?
Great question. I'm glad we start there because that is kind of the big area that you might see change from previous year budget requests. The Administrative Hearing Office has traditionally been the least staffed office in our divisions. Prior to PUA, I think there was only 2 people there, the Administrative Hearing Officer and an admin assistant. And as some of you might be aware, when you think of last year's issues when we were dealing with impeachment, one of the problems that they were talking about in the AG's office was making sure that there are walls built between the lawyers and the clients, etc. And when you have a staff of only 2 people in an office that's supposed to have measures like that in place for internal controls to protect the integrity of the process and the rights and due process of all of those involved, 2 staff is not enough. Having 2 administrative hearing officers would be the minimum adequate in order to create those walls and to provide that assurance of fairness in the process. And if you'd like more, I'm sure Jackie will be able to express that because she's taught me so much sitting in my seat now about what kind of needs are not just for the Department of Labor, but across the agencies in the CNMI government. If there is any agency that is required to provide due process hearings for any permit that is denied or labor, or not just labor, but an employment dispute, the longer those cases sit and wait for being addressed, the more the government is at liability and paying out later on when they do finally get addressed. And so having 2 administrative hearing officers will ensure that we'll have enough staff to schedule these things out and to provide those those things that you need to ensure fairness in the process. Okay. And I will let Jackie fill in all the holes that I've left.
Okay, so thank you, Secretary. So I guess I'll direct my question to you, Ms. Jackie. So a hearing officer basically is almost like a judge in a sense, right? In a smaller scale, specialized in just adjudicating some of the labor issues, PUA, I guess it says in your website, denial case. But can you just, for the rest of us that don't really understand what this job entails and why it's important, because now you're obviously one man short, because this one was the other employer or employee you had was 100% or 90% funded by ARPA. So now that you don't have ARPA, right, that leaves you. So can you just give us a brief synopsis of what it is that you do and why it's important?
So, as the administrative hearing officer, my job functions what is more familiarly known as administrative law judge. Basically, when a aggrieved party, whether it's a private company or a private person, has an issue with the government in terms of licensing, in terms of benefits, in terms of procurement protests, administrative law judges are the entities that hear over the disputes, somewhat like a judge. My hearings are very similar to bench trials that you'll see in the Superior Court. Obviously, a lot less formal since we're dealing with self-represented litigants, and a lot more informal so that there could be more quickly addressed, and also to tailor to the fact that it's not very many attorneys that are appearing on behalf of their clients. It's usually the person or an authorized representative who's not an attorney. So my job at the hearing office is almost threefold. I function as a hearing officer with a full caseload. I also function as the division director in charge of all the management stuff. And I also do a lot of the supervisory issues, like making sure the staff have everything they need and making sure the staff are trained. So on top of that, I also work at or offer services to multiple other agencies where there is an availability, and it's been a little difficult to be able to do three roles at once. So we're hoping that with someone else able and available to conduct these hearings for us, it'll allow me to really revamp the hearing office, updating forms, updating SOPs, and really making sure that the hearings are done not only quickly but correctly and efficiently, and serve the people that with the due process they need.
Do you see, I guess, and let's talk about last year, last fiscal year. How many cases were you seeing last fiscal year? And I just want to get an idea of the importance, and I'm assuming that because it's in the budget requests, there's going to be some requests to that. Go ahead, Ms.
If I can just add to, while she's looking up her case notes from last year, we recently just launched a survey to all of the cabinets who do have this on their regulations. And so I will get back to you once I get that final data, so you can see across the CNMI government what is the perceived need based on their previous history, and basically across all of the agencies. So I sent that out yesterday. I'll get by maybe next week.
Thank you. We'd appreciate that, Madam Secretary.
I actually have data going back to FY21. So if I may, FY21 was our busiest year because of all the PUA appeals. In that fiscal year, 213 cases were filed and manned by mostly me and one other pro tem. In FY 2022, there was 108 cases that were filed. And so far of FY 23, we have 41 total cases filed. And that's just for the Department of Labor.
Are these all private citizens working in the private sector, or is it a combination of both private and government?
It is a combination. Right now, of the 41 cases that we have, 16 are labor cases, which are private citizens having complaints with regards to their employer. 2 of them are compliance agency cases, where it's our enforcement officers going out into the businesses and issuing sanctions or fines for violations that the employer conducts. 20 of them are PUA appeals, and 3 of them are secretary appeals. So secretary appeals are in the event that someone is not happy with my decision, they have an avenue to have my decision reviewed by our Secretary of Labor.
Got it. Okay. So how much would it cost to actually, I guess, request for an additional person to help you? Well, first of all, would one person suffice?
It really depends on the results of the survey that we have with regards to other offices
So
needing
we'll
it.
just wait on that.
Right now, or in the past, we've paid hearing officers that act as pro tems. Pro tems are temporary hearing officers that help me and take on cases when my caseload is way too high, when I have to recuse myself because of a conflict of interest, or when there is some other issue that I can't hear the case. Um, with our pro tems, it varied depending on their experience. Because they are licensed attorneys, it can go anywhere from 150 to 250 per hour. So it costs the agency and the department that amount to be able to have another attorney. But in calculating it, a salary of what we've requested here for 80,000 comes out to almost $40 an hour.
Wow. The secretary makes more than that. Less?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess I have a last question, and then I'll just I'll yield. So there's a piece here, I guess that I'm a little confused, and maybe you can go ahead and educate me on this. So we have the AG's office that represents agencies, right? And then we have employees that have an issue with agencies that the AG's office represents, and has all these conflicts, right, involved in all of this. It just gets tangled, and it's like a spider web. It's a horrible thing, and people are not happy with certain things when it comes to due process and law, right? So in your case, if a person in the government came in and said, I have a problem with a particular agency, which is an employer, let's just say the judicial court, the court, for example, and the HR person there neglected to, I guess, be fair in a compensation for a pay raise or something like that, would they be able to come and see you and say, hey, look, I have a problem. This agency skipped me on the pay scale. There's a current pay scale. I've been working here for 25 years, and they keep, you know, passing me by. I've performed, I've been evaluated. And do they go to you, or who do, I mean, I'm trying to understand the difference between the attorney general, and then the difference between this person hiring a private attorney and going to the judge and saying, I have a case, right? Can they come and see you first?
I think that's confusing a few different issues. So,
Mhm.
with the Attorney General, they're the chief legal counsel for all government agencies, for my understanding. And they don't provide legal advice or act as legal counsel to any private citizen, for my information. Um, in your scenario or your example where it was an employee of the judiciary, one complication with that is that my jurisdiction is only within labor for the Department of Labor, and with regards to foreign workers, U.S. citizen workers in the private sector.
Okay.
With the judiciary, because they are a separate branch, well, traditionally, if a government employee had an issue like that, they would be able to go to civil service and OPM and file a grievance there, which I also conduct hearings for. But the judiciary being a different branch of the government, I'm not familiar with their resources and their avenues for that kind of review.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
If I may. With regards to your question about justifying a second hearing officer, I believe in our budget, we included a narrative there that really shows you why we need that second hearing officer. One of the reasons is because under our regulations, we are supposed to provide mediation. Mediation services are when you don't want to go to court, you want to settle and you want to be done with it, and you don't want to have to sit in a hearing and really fight your case. But because I am the singular hearing officer, I can't conduct the hearing as a presiding officer as well as mediate. That is a conflict of interest. So because there's only one of me, we have not been able to provide the mediations. which is longer adjudication, longer resolution, and it's a little bit more difficult for the parties. Additionally, it's a very limited work capacity. Our hearings are anywhere from an hour to, I think the longest one I've had is 2 days. And these hearings are somewhat like bench trials with the Superior Court, but a lot less formal. And I can probably hear 1 or 2 longer ones in a week. Right now, my calendar is filling up all the way until October. I have hearings set out as far back as October. And that makes it really difficult for the parties who have a pressing issue like wage claims. It's a burden for them to not get paid their full salary and then have to file the appeal and then have to wait to be heard. Some people have been waiting maybe a month or 2, sometimes in delayed prosecution or delayed adjudication and complications because they don't have an attorney. It could be even longer. As I mentioned earlier, we do have higher caseloads prior in fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22. Now that we are having lower caseloads, we have been able to minimize or reduce the amount of time or case age that someone waits. In my data, I am showing what was originally somewhere between, 3 months to now being 40 days. And that's with us having the pro tem hearing officer and with less cases. As in addition to the delayed adjudication, we're not able to really expand our services. The hearing office is really special in the government in that it's one of the only government offices with a regulatory agency or enforcement office that has an in-house hearing office, has an established system, has established and dedicated staff to really address those issues. Lately, we've been receiving a lot of requests from other agencies that either need hearing offices or officers for 1 hearing, 2 hearing, 5 hearings, 10 hearings. And considering that my role is to prioritize the Department of Labor, it's very hard for me to be able to say, yes, I can help you. And on top of that, their regulations are very different where they have to have hearings held between 5 days to 15 days. Ours are a little bit longer, but already pushed out. So at some point, it's just not tenable to only continue with 1 hearing officer. And as we expand services, we need to even expand past 2. With respect to one other issue is the conflicts of interest and issues of self-recusal. As the only hearing officer, if I can't hear the case, it doesn't get heard. And that's a disservice to the public. If I have to recuse myself, we have to, as the government, pay another attorney $150 an hour to $250 an hour to hear that case. And cases are not done in an hour. Cases have to be prepped, they have to be heard, and then you have to have a decision. Prior, the very beginning of PUA, we probably had multiple contracts go out for hearing officers where they probably went from 3 to 6 months of work, and that cost the department around $70,000. So it's very cost effective to have multiple hearing officers in one office that is properly staffed and adequately able to service these agencies.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate the 101 on hearing officer. Now we have a better understanding, and there's obviously an important need for that. So thank you so much, Ms. Attorney Jackie. I yielded, so we'll yield to the chair.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Representative Flores, for those questions, because it does bring to light what I would like to propose to just plant the seed in your minds that ideally the CNMI government needs to consider making an autonomous agency that would be a hearing office alone because of the need across our government. The survey that I will bring to you will give you more information, and it might not be something we can afford next budget, but it's something we should look at to ensuring our people get the due process that they deserve and that are part of our regulations anyway. And I never really even considered the fact that many regulations have that time limit. And when we as our government don't meet that, then we are doing a disservice to our people. And so I will get off my soapbox and thank you for listening to why we need to support the hearing office in the CNMI. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. And I'll recognize Rep. Solam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And welcome. Good afternoon, Madam Secretary, and to your team. Um, my questions would be more on the vacancies. I see that under your enforcement section or division in your department, the director position is still vacant, and uh, I'm assuming that it's been vacant for a long time. Perhaps, what are the many challenges that you're having from hiring a director?
Well, I guess to start with, we do have two vacancies there. One just got filled, so we have a contract that's routing right now for an enforcement officer. But the director position itself, to be honest, when I came into the department, it wasn't actually in any of the budgets. I think that was a FTD that was taken away in a previous budget hearing. But what the structure of our department is that there was a director and then the deputy. And even in our regulations, which I mentioned at the very beginning of when I came into this budget hearing, is that the current Title 80 regulations of the organizational chart, even the titles of the managers do not match what is existing today. There are, I think, there were 9 managers in the regulations, and currently there are only 6 on the team. So we've lost different deputies and other positions over time, and they've changed the names. And so I just wanted to try and get back to some of the original structure that was existing, which would include our director position. Our current acting director is not interested in the director position, and so we would like to open that one up for the next budget season.
Thank you for that clarification and response. When does the PUA program, when is the mature date or the deadline for the PUA program?
Thank you for that. Our PUA program was given an extension to next June 2024. So we have 1 year extension to complete the current processing that we have on hand.
Okay, and the reason I ask is that, by the way, congratulations on your approval of there are vacancies also under PUA program coordinators. What are your plans? Are you planning to fill those vacant positions?
I believe that we do have some PUA openings for certain positions that are in. Not yet? Okay. We do
Probably
not.
5, yeah, just 5 vacant positions.
Okay. I'm not sure. Where did you find that information? Is that
It's
in our budget?
It's in your worksheet under the federal funds account.
Okay. You guys take a look. We will look at that and get right back to you. But we do have turnover in our PUA positions. But also because the PUA program we got a year extension, but we're also expected to be, winding down in a sense. So there are openings that come up, and if we are able to fill them, we do. And if we're winding down and we need to move those positions to other parts of the program, like for example, after adjudication is when you get your auditing. So we need to make sure that our auditing team continues to grow as our adjudication team gets smaller, because that's where there's more work, is in the auditing team.
Thank you for that response. Mr. Chairman, I yield until the time for the questions of the other non-budget related. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sablan. Just quick question, Secretary. You made a request a couple of days ago to my office regarding the revolving fund. Can you I guess, requests so that the members will understand what you're asking for.
Thank you for giving me that time. So this is also in relation to the administrative hearing office. Currently, we've been getting requests from different entities such as the Civil Service Commission, Commerce, CPA. Um, we have quite a list. CUC, Board of Education, BECQ, all of these agencies have come to us requesting for hearing services. The problem we are having now is prior to that, we were providing service and they were paying us using their ARPA account. Now that there is no ARPA account, most of those agencies have revolving accounts. And I learned the hard way that you cannot do a transfer from a general fund to a revolving account. It's got to be revolving to revolving. If that's what I've been told. I see some faces. I'm going to go back to finance. But basically, we are not, we need a mechanism to be able to receive payment for the services so that we can do the work that is being asked. Yes, these agencies could go outside and get a pro tem lawyer, but the service that they will be receiving is going to take longer and cost them more money than if they were to go in the government office. And that's why we need to ask your help to create this revolving account. And it would help supplement our operations and support our administrative hearing office.
Thank you.
needs.
And I think my vice chair told me it doesn't make sense. So I'll yield to him right now.
Please edify me.
No, I see Ms. V agreeing with you that there's a revolving account to revolving account, but revolving accounts are used for operations and so in some situations used for personnel, right? So if let's say CHCC, because that's the big news with CUC right now, if they have a revolving account and they owe CUC, couldn't they use that revolving account to pay as considered an operational cost?
So if they have an existing revolving account that they're using to, for such purpose, then they can use that account at the same time. But as far as like collecting, I think first of all there has to be an enabling statute to be able to create another business unit or another account. But if it's a professional services that you need, and you have an existing account that you're using for the hearing office, then perhaps maybe just a categorical expense establishment that's needed within that existing account is what's needed. Otherwise, the creation of another business unit or another project code or project org, it's required by an enabling statute.
Yes, so that was why I was requesting if it would be able to be included in this year's budget. And I did also ask for a long-term solution with Representative Probst, who was also willing to look into that.
So may I ask, Secretary, from the private businesses, when they make the payment to labor, where does that money go?
General fund,
Goes to general fund?
right? Yeah, like when they pay for if they want a good standing certificate, it's $100 or $250. All the funding that we receive goes to the general fund. Even in our enforcement efforts, the money that we collect in enforcement goes to the general fund. This is my understanding.
Okay, so maybe what we should do is go back to the enabling legislation that created labor and allow you guys to come promulgate rules and regulations so that those funds can remain with you guys. But you got to be honest also when we get to the budget process that we know what's in those accounts so that when we distribute the funds, it might go work and for you guys, but it might also hurt you guys down the road, right? But we need to go back and address that on the enabling legislation. But that'll be something that we should consider on a general language for this current budget because there's multiple agencies that have the same situation. We just finished with DLNR, so they're assisting them. They're assisting other departments and agencies. So I guess we're gonna have to be creative, at least as a general language for labor, DLNR, DPW, or whatever other entity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair, it's, the floor is still open. No, Vice. I recognize Rep. Ogo.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So this is with a question for the Administrative Hearing Office. For Rhoda, how do you guys entertain complaints from Rhoda? Do you send them up here, or do you guys come down and entertain the hearing, or?
Our regulations allow us to conduct hearings telephonically, via online, or in person. In the event the employer is on island, or the person is filing here but is in Rhoda, they have that option between in person, um, online, or telephonically. The hard thing with doing telephonic hearings, especially long bench trials, is I can't see you. If I can't see you, I can't judge whether or not you're telling me the truth, and I can't look at the credibility. I can't look at whether or not you're looking at any other information while you're testifying under oath. So the preference is in person if they're able to come on island. If they are not able to be on island, then our next route would be online hearings.
So I assume that it's going to fall, the travel cost or expense will fall on the employer or the employee, correct?
For a labor case, which is between a private employee and a private employer, yes, the cost of litigation is on them. With regards to compliance agency cases where our enforcement officers and investigators are sanctioning businesses, it would be on the department for their investigators to travel, assuming an online hearing is not possible.
Also, another question is, I just lost my train of thought. Are you for now?
Thank you, Rep. Ogo. Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, Madam Chair or Madam Secretary, to your chamber. But my question is, do you by chance work with small business entrepreneurs to, along with the Department of Commerce, for the SSBCI program?
Remind me what SSBCI
It's
means.
the State Small Business Credit Initiative.
At this time, I can say no, but we are always open to interagency collaboration. That's something that we've been definitely working more towards, is making relationships and networking within any agency or partner out there to provide small businesses with information. One of the things I really want to do is kind of create a cheat sheet that we can collaborate with the business license office on all the different things that businesses need to do, because that's something I definitely see in our enforcement efforts, that not all businesses are submitting all documents that they need to do, and in collaborating with these other entities, we can help the businesses be more compliant.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And my last question, Mr. Chair, if I may. With being with the recent furloughs or layoffs of all these permanent or temporary ARPA employees, have any of these previous employees reached out to your office to collaborate to maybe plug them into the workforce investment agency? And how many have? Thank you.
Thank you. I will say at the beginning of the layoffs that were occurring when ARPA funding was dwindling or known that it was gone, we did not first see an uptick, but we did recently see more people walking through, and I will let our employment services director share more about that.
Thank you. So unless they identify themselves as, former employees funded by ARPA, then, would be able to track that information, but they don't. Anyone that comes to seek our services at Employment Services will go through the normal routines.
It appears that although we did participate in the OPM outreach to provide access to more opportunities for anybody who was interested, especially those who were laid off, we did not get as much of an increase as we would like. We saw a small increase, but we do see a need to market more of our opportunities to people out there. That's kind of why we've been working hard with NMTI and NMC. We've also been reaching out with our business partners. We're reestablishing our state workforce development board. The governor is just finalizing the final appointees for that. And then we can really hit the ground running to work more directly with businesses on the initiatives that we have. We want more people to come to us. We really do.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. And when does the WIA program open, or when is it going to be made available to departments? And can the legislature avail to that?
I will let Ms. Francis Torres share about the WIA program, and thank you for asking.
Thank you, Secretary. To answer the question of the legislature, I'm going to address that first. We did get a request in the past from a former rep. I did push the question up to our federal counterparts, and we were informed that the legislature is not eligible to avail. And we can submit another request, but I'm sure they're going to come back saying the same. As far as we as services, we don't have an end date unless there is a special program that we're running. So anybody can apply at any time. So we don't have a certain end date, if that's what you were inquiring on an open date.
Were you referring to like summer stuff?
Yes.
Okay, I know that in the past that there was a WIA summer program, and that program actually has transformed itself, and it's now a youth boot camp. What's it called?
So if I
Yeah,
may.
please.
So WIA, is the Workforce Investment Agency. It's what the division is called. We used to be under the office of the governor, and when we transitioned to DOL, we remained WIA. WIA was past legislation that governed the program. WIA has since transitioned to the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA. Since that transition, youth funding, the focus switched over to out-of-school youth. So federal mandates require us to dedicate 75% of our youth funds to out-of-school youth and only spend 25% for in-school services. When that happened, we had to switch up our services, and instead of running our usual summer program, which was last done about 10 years ago, just remember last year's summer program was not WIA's program. It was through the governor's youth affairs office. So we haven't run a summer program, but we do work closely with the public school system to support their CTE programs year-round, and also the summer boot camp program in industry-specific training. So as you've seen in the recent news, they have HVAC, nursing, those kind of programs.
And so I did get that question a lot, even from the community, and I think there was a transition, and it wasn't as broadly communicated, but there has been no WIA summer program for many years, actually, and instead has been this boot camp collaboration with PSS, where they have the middle school and high school students do stuff at NMTI to promote those pathways. Partly why we're very constrained with respect to how we spend the WIA dollars. Their performance outcomes are very heavily monitored, and when we don't meet those outcomes, they take money away. And that's why Ms. Francis is very strict about the program and how it operates, and that's why it isn't the same as before.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Secretary. My last question is, I'm noticing that the department's budget requests for, like, for example, under your office of the secretary, you're requesting 69,704 versus what the governor's proposing, which is 1,796. And if the budget were to pass at this level, the governor's proposal, are you guys able to function at that level? It's significantly lower than what you guys are asking for.
Sorry, did not wear my glasses. We will always do the best that we can to operate. This budget request also includes the WIA program. In the past, WIA was funded since before in 2000, before 2015, right? Was that the date? Yeah, in the budgets in the past, WIA was a locally funded entity, and that's why we actually included that in this year's budget to bring the staff back to local funding. And what that would do is then free up that federal funding for more program funds, and it would go to support more of the out of school youth, the dislocated workers, and the other programs that we provide. Instead of paying salaries for staff, it would go back into the community that we serve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chairman, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Camacho. Any further discussion? Yeah. Just on the budget before we head to, do you have a Rep Flores? We're gonna change if there's no more questions with regards to the budget. I know the community is really calling our offices with regards to PUA and the touchback. So before we get a briefing, I want.
It's not directed to those two things, but. So I guess in one of the programs that you have, I'm not sure who runs the program, but everybody that employees who are interested in getting employment from the private sector have to record and upload their data or their resumes, right, into this pool, right? Can you tell me, that's one, and then you have some people that have the 50-50 program where the employer pays 50% and, right, that's you. Okay, so I think I'm going here. So can you tell me how many private entities avail or are in that program now?
So the program Rep Flores is referencing in regard to the 50-50 is what we call the on-the-job training program. It is one of the work-based learning strategies that we provide to employers. Basically, what it is an employer would employ an individual. It is the concept of hire first, train later. And then we enter into the contractual agreement, meaning we with the employer to reimburse 50% for the extraordinary costs of training. That can be done directly with an employer, or that is also what is called the on-the-job learning component to a registered apprenticeship program. Because the registered apprenticeship requires related training instruction, that is classroom instructions, as well as on-the-job learning. So they get 50% back for the training.
So how many businesses avail of that?
Presently, on the job, OJT contracts are with our RAP sponsors, and currently we have five. Five. Just remember the Apprenticeship State Expansion Grant, it's the first in the CNMI, only came to us at the height of the pandemic in 2019. We faced many challenges in implementing the program because of what has happened to our economy. We closed our gates, and so businesses were, not interested in venturing into something new and the unknown of our economy. And so it was a rough start, but I have to say that we've come a long ways. We were reporting less than 10 apprentices. We are about to close this grant on June 30, and we're currently about to peak into 30 some apprentices with about 5 programs. So yes, the number is small, but that's just the program. It's the apprentices that we're counting, which are the actual workers.
And how many of those?
Those, we are about 30.
30? Okay, thank you. I yield.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Flores. Any further discussion? No, we all agree with your budget. So, just so we know that we are gonna try to work with that language for the revolving fund, and then if there's no further questions, I'll yield back to the secretary just to update our viewing public with regards to the PUA. I know there's when you look at the federal fund section, there's still a lot of balances here, and where are we and how are we gonna address it? And then the touchback, just briefly to take the whole.
All right, thank you. I'd like to go ahead and call up Vince to come and join me up here. And Vince will give us the picture of our numbers with respect to the auditing, and Zach will give us the overall picture with respect to the adjudications. And we'll start with Zach. So go ahead, Zach. And he can also answer your money questions.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, just an update on our statistics as of June 6th, yesterday. We have a total of 9,896 applicants. Of that, 6,526 of them have been finalized within the adjudication section. And we are at 3,370 pending. That is non-inclusive of those that have already exhausted all benefits or have received a determination throughout the entirety of their claim and have been found to be overpaid. For the overpayment, or let me just.
Hi, good afternoon. So for the overpayments, the benefit payment control unit, we had a total reported of 5,968 claims of potential overpayment. That's due to either error by the claimant or staff. We do have to investigate where the error came from, if it was from incorrect information being reported or withheld information, like no one was inputting their wages or they're not reporting their second job or their side business or anything like that. And to date, we have 1,888 pending audits. With that, that's a staff member of 13 auditors at this point in time. I try to bring more on board. Usually in-house, I transfer from adjudication to my side because they have the base knowledge for the program. So it's not as more, the training is not as much. Otherwise, if it's fresh on board from the public, it's usually 1 to 2 month training for auditing. Due to all the changing U pools, the certifications that I am requiring them to have for adjudication, reviewing, and fraud detection. This is also to make sure that, you know, the funds that we were granted by our U.S. Department of Labor is being dispersed correctly, and if they're not, we are obligated to recollect that.
Did you have further questions about, those are the basis numbers on the people who are waiting in the different areas of the PUA program. Again, knowing that the renewal process is every quarter, knowing that the training required to be able to read all the different types of documentation that comes in and be able to code it correctly and put it within our systems, it takes a lot of time and effort to train the staff. And so any loss of staff is a loss of knowledge, especially with respect to the individual cases that they manage. The way that the PUA teams are broken down is by alphabetical, and within the alphabet, they have their core teams. And those core teams focus on those clientele in that alphabetical arrangement. Across the board, the numbers are pretty even, where each of the alphabets, if you will, have about the same amount of numbers across the board. Their goals have been to focus on the PUA 1 claimants first, and if they also have subsequent 2, 3, or week 5 payments, then they are working to clear out one person with all their PUA pending. The only holdups would be number one, documentation. A lot of people still complain about documents getting lost or things being their employer is having a harder time to find documents 2 or 3 years later. Regardless, that is something that we can't skip. We absolutely must have those required documents in order to move their cases forward. And then with respect to the auditing and making sure that all the documents are valid, accurate, and not fraudulent, that's the long process it takes to see through to the end. But I can say that our PUA 1 numbers have dwindled down so that they're mainly in the auditing phase. We are not adjudicating as many of the PUA 1 claimants at this time, and we are now more into the PUA 2 and beyond. But that's how we've been trying to get to each case.
Thank you, Secretary. And I guess the public is concerned because of the rumors that the money has run out, and just so that we understand what's going on. So the pool 1, 2, and 3 are still available to. It's just a process of with the extension. We just gotta wait out until next year. That's what you said.
Well, we have a year to get it done, and we want to get it done within that year or sooner, of course. We don't want people to wait a year. We want to get it done. We are just given that year to try and get as much done as possible.
Okay. With that, I'll now you to Representative Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with regards to overpayments, how much of overpayment has your department were able to get back from those that were issued wrongfully calculated and issued?
Thank you for that question. So to date, because the PUA program is broken down by two separate accounts, the PUA funding and the FPUC funding, to date we've collected 15,963,000 in PUA. FPUC accounts, we've recollected 17,772,000 for a total of 33 million. This is based on overpayments, intercepted payments due to fraud, out-of-state addresses, or incorrect payments.
And how much we have still yet to collect? What is the figures on that? Do you have that?
No, unfortunately not, because for the auditing team, we don't just look at the supposed reported issue. We do look at the claim overall, from the first date they claimed all the way through the last date they claimed, just to make sure that the benefits are being paid accurately. There's no improper payments, which either means overpaid or underpaid for wages that might have been overreported. Unfortunately for that, we don't have a standing number.
Okay, thank you for your response. So with this 33 million successfully recollected back, where does these funds go? Is it recycled into the program?
Yes, those funds are returned to the actual accounts they came from, so they don't get spent or put into any other funding accounts. They're required to go back into the accounts they came from.
So when it goes back to the account and there's future applicants, right now I think the application has closed, right? So it's all about adjudicating, auditing, and getting all these paperworks done. So so my next question will be, are there in any instances that there are PUA 2 or 3 were given and PUA 1 is still pending? Are there such an instance?
That's such a very rare instance, because in order to get to the PUA 2 and 3 funding, they have to exhaust the previous accounts or weeks that they claimed for. There may be possibilities that it does happen, but that's a very rare case.
Okay.
There might be certain times where they have an active issue for a certain amount of weeks. They go file their claim for PUA 2 or 3. It gets cleared, and they might have lapsed weeks or skipped weeks. But when we do review that, we do ensure that if they are eligible for it, we'll go back and pay the weeks that were missed.
Okay, thank you for that response. And so because we have extended POAS 2 and 3, and are there any instances that if there are clientels that got overpaid in PUA 1 and that they are eligible for PUA 2 and PUA 3, that an arrangement of offsetting of that overpayment can be done?
Yes, there is the option. It is actually a required recollection process as set out by USDOL. It's under UIPL 2320, which outlines the recollection process that the states or territories must follow or can follow. We do, like I said, when we do our audits, we do verify the whole claim, what they're eligible for, so we can kind of get a accurate estimate of what they're entitled to and offer them the appropriate payment options, either benefit deductions, biweekly payments, or if they don't agree with any of our determinations, they have the option to go to the hearing office to get, I guess, to another course to see if they're qualified.
Okay. So how many adjudicators do you have, and how many auditors do you have?
So I can only answer for the auditors. Right now, I have 13 under my department, 14 if you include myself. With my caseload, I do try to help with the audits just because of how big of the number it is.
Yeah.
I'm currently working on 5 open cases right now on top of my regular supervisory duties.
Yeah.
For adjudication numbers, I can give it over to Mr. Zachary Taitano.
Sure.
Hi, good afternoon. So for the adjudicators, there are 22 inclusive of 1 supervisor and 1 representative on ROTA. We currently don't have anyone on Tinian.
Right. Yeah, and the reason why I asked is I could imagine the adjudicators with the workload and then any further process transfers to the auditors. I mean, it seems like we need to have a balance here because we're still talking about still thousands of application pending. Thank you. Are you for now, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Representative Sablan. Any further? Oh, sure, Secretary.
I just wanted to give you a picture as well to compare what the CNMI has been doing with respect to the fraud protection process. Because of the due diligence of the PUA team, the CNMI has found or has, what's the right word? Intercepted that much money, that $15 million. If you compare to the other areas, including Guam, they have not come nearly as far. In fact, our audit findings, which we do have and we are addressing with the correct process, related to the first initial parts of the PUA program, where not even in Guam, there wasn't much system established to how to do this and how to make sure that we're, not just giving it away without having the protections in place. But the CNMI was able to have less audit findings and less money lost to this fraud, these kind of fraudulent things as compared to even our neighbors. Thank you.
So, Chairman, just a follow-up question. You said that there's $33 million that you've recovered already, or roughly $33 million. How much was the total amount that was awarded to the CNMI? Was it like the 300 million or something like that?
Our finance person will be right with us. This is Miss Linda, and she will tell us.
Take this seat, Secretary. There's an open seat here for her.
So our total award for benefits was a little over $700 million.
Were those monies kept in the federal accounts, or were they dropped into local accounts, into different local accounts?
Yes, they stay in the federal.
They stay in the federal, so we're only doing a drawdown, so whatever we
Yes.
remit to finance, they come out and then they reimburse the accounts?
Right.
Okay, shoot. I was leaning more towards the interest part of this stuff. Where
Right.
these were, I asked because it's important. It's important that those monies are supposed to be remitted to the CNMI, right? The very least we could have done is kept them in an interest bearing account, so that if there's a post PUA, post FPUA process, we can actually use those for administrative costs. Now the question is, those monies that you had intercepted or collected back in the tune of $33 million, will we be able to receive a percentage of that for the administrative costs of the department in recouping those funds back?
Sorry. Um, just to answer that, unfortunately, we are unable to keep any of those funds. Usually for that kind of, um, I guess, interest or repayment to be kept to the CNMI would take U.S. congressional um, law.
I agree to that. I agree with that, right? To a certain extent, because we've done the due diligence here. You have other people, for example, Guam. There's a couple of guys that went to jail in this process. They took in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're in jail for what, 3 years, right? So can you imagine the return of investment if you actually put a person in jail for 3 years at maybe $37,000 annually just to keep them in there? I mean, it only makes sense. The least we can do is ask. I don't know if labor's ever asked if we're able to at least recoup a certain percentage of that $33 million. I think the very least we can ask, and maybe we can include something in the budget that any external funds that's collected per this program shall remain with labor in a revolving account, unless labor doesn't want that.
We'll always say yes.
So it would depend too, because a lot of the unemployment programs, unfortunately, the CNMI and the territories don't have. Um, with the UPOs, they do allow for penalties to be assessed on certain types of overpayment, which unfortunately, like I said, we don't have. So we can't assess a state or local penalty that we would keep a percentage.
Okay.
But we are open to asking. I'm pretty sure the secretary would agree. We will ask about that.
Okay, and if we do ask and we do get a percentage, let's use it as a seed money to create our own unemployment. Well, I don't know what it's called, right? Our unemployment rate here in the CNMI. Then we can actually be creative in finding revenue generating legislations that would actually put money into that. In addition to charging private businesses to make sure that they pay an annual fee into this program. Maybe we can start with that. And then we can always have something if we ever get to, and I pray to God we never get to this type of a problem in the future, but would have something to base ourselves off of, and we can start using the statistics from commerce to be able to address our ability to ask for future monies in certain situations. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you for getting all energetic about that. That's definitely something we're interested in. We did submit a grant for unemployment insurance feasibility study. Guam is actually in the process of also getting that study. We are hoping to get our approval in the near future to be included in the Guam study, because if they're doing Guam, they may as well do us all together. And that would, this team has been working on their processes to be able to maintain that kind of a system, and having a transition to that would be an excellent way to keep the capacity that has been built within this department, so that we can continue to provide services like that in the event we have emergencies like we did. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you, Vice. Any further with regards to PUA? None? Sure.
I just wanted to share that we did get our budget approval back, and it included that reimbursement that we requested from the initial onset of the PUA program. And so we are happy to report that we did get that budget receipt back, that reimbursement was approved. And for how much was it approved? 528,000 million, right? Thousand. Sorry, I wish it's a million. I wish it's a million. $528,000, $500,000 we can give back to the CNMI government for the initial parts of this PUA program. And so you're welcome.
Thank you. And now we can reappropriate that.
Well, we got to make sure that OMB provides that information from the administration so we can appropriate.
Is that,
Thank you, Secretary, for that the wonderful information. You have a fine team, actually. We don't see that the hard work. I'm sure but we hear all the complaints, but we don't see the issues behind it. And now we can see what at least and where the public is aware now with what's going on, and there is some assurance that as long as the documents are in. We have approximately a year, to try to adjudicate the word of the day, adjudicate this out, and hopefully everybody gets what they rightfully earn. And with that,
no, can I be recognized, Chairman?
I recognize you.
Yeah, just a follow up on on your reimbursement. Congratulations for getting that approved. I guess the big question, since we're talking about that, very good, successful effort. When are we expecting that money?
Zach?
I'm still in communication with our FPO with regards to the budget and what we requested for, what we were approved, because the amounts were a little off to what we had requested, some more, some less, because it was two different funding two opportunities within the same announcement. So I need to communicate further with the project officer.
Thank you.
But the funds should be hopefully by next month. So
Yeah.
we're hopeful.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. I just want my colleagues to know that the money's not here yet.
It's on the way.
Thank you, Representative Sablan. Did you? Okay. Okay. If there's no further, I would just like to request the secretary just to update our viewing public with regards to the touchback and where we at with that.
All right, thank you. So the touchback is with respect to the requirement for foreign workers to leave the CNMI. There's a departure requirement after the third year of their CW renewal. This is something that was placed in the law when it was passed in 2018 as part of the negotiations within that committee. What I was told is that the people who were part of that negotiation were very adamant to make sure that foreign workers left the CNMI after 3 years. The intent of that law and the intent of every labor law that has been in the CNMI since 1983 has always been to push a preference for employment for U.S. workers. That has always been part of our labor laws, and that is why the touchback is a point of contention in the law, because it is making it harder for people to renew their foreign workers. We are often asked what are the numbers, how many employers are affected, what dates are they affected, and these are kinds of things that we actually don't have direct information to, because the USCIS does not share that with us directly. I have made requests through their Freedom of Information process online. I'm like number 222, so I'm waiting to hear back from them. I also made efforts to reach out to our congressman in Washington, D.C., and have been working with his team with the help of Mr. Bob Schwalbach to make a connection within USCIS to be able to get that information more readily. I am still working on that. I did create a survey, which I just launched today at the Chamber of Commerce, Saipan Chamber of Commerce meeting, to get more information from private businesses on how many employees are affected, what their positions are, and what months are they scheduled to have to leave, so that we as a community can understand, because this will affect our economy. Now, I've also put in that survey, what efforts have those businesses made to be able to meet their workforce needs despite this requirement. And that is something I will share with you once I get that information, just so we know what our business is actually doing to address this problem, because it is beyond our control. The only entity that could change that requirement is US Congress. And knowing that, the people in charge right now in the committees were the same people who ensured those provisions of the departure requirement are there, it does not look very likely that that is a requirement that will change. There have been businesses who've shared with me that they are planning to reach out to the USCIS directly to ask for an exemption. And that is their prerogative, but it's not something that we as the CNMI Department of Labor, or you even as the legislature, can change, because it would take an act of Congress to change that requirement. So in the meantime, what can we do? The Department of Labor, in getting that data, will have a bigger picture of when the majority of CW employees will be leaving, and we plan to have a job fair to help give employers a place to help search for possible employment opportunities. And that we'll be working with our Employment Services Office and WIA division. We also want to encourage our businesses out there to use the programs that the Department of Labor has through our apprenticeship program. Like I said, it's new, it's getting off the ground, and we've really been growing, and we want to continue to grow, and it can get you a return on investment. And so having employers reach out and work with our WIA program, our apprenticeship program, and making sure that they really use our data that is available in the Employment Services program, because any interested person who wants to find a job can go in there and register, and our system can help match them up to the job that might meet their skills and meet the job requirement of the business itself. And so it's like a matchmaker, you know? We want more people to use our system. We don't have enough people using our system. So we will be doing a lot of marketing and outreach in this next month, including a job fair. So that's kind of where we're aiming to help with the touchback. And that's the best I can do for now.
Thank you. Oh, good.
Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary, I was just wondering, because I know that it's totally out of our hands, right? And I know you're working with with our good congressman in DC. Did you bring up the just the infrastructure portion of the issue of the cinema? Because it's even the deadlines are set by the United States, right? So a lot of these grants that we're getting, whether it be FEMA or EDA monies or even CDBG-DR monies, we have a deadline, and unfortunately, we don't have the manpower to be able to meet the deadline. That's even if at this point, if they gave us another 3 years, we probably wouldn't be able to meet the deadline because we don't have the manpower. And we do these touchbacks. A lot of these countries, I can speak for the Philippines because I've seen that process. And when they get there, it's not in their control. When they go to the embassy to get their papers taken care of, they can just close at 8 a.m. or open at 8 a.m., close at 8:30, and that's it, right? They would have to come back. They don't even come in a number. So a lot of these people that would go there to uh, fix their papers, instead of being there for like a month, they're there for like 4 to 6 months because their papers aren't being processed, and it's all dependent on their embassies over there. And that really chokes us over here, because we don't have the ability locally to finish these projects. We don't even have the ability to have a construction firm based on just U.S. U.S. employees. Our minimum wage, it's good for us. It's also bad for us, right? So one of the issues that was brought up back in the early 2000s was flipping all federal projects to make sure that construction workers were paid at the federal minimum wage level. If we implement that now, we're not going to be able to afford these projects, because the quotes are going to change, right? I.e., one of the legislations that was being considered here is an increase in tax. A lot of these construction firms are saying, "Well, look, we already signed a contract. Well, that makes sense, right? We can do posts, but we still need to meet the deadline. And if we don't get that to that point, we're gonna lose the money. At the same time, we're gonna lose our ability to economically grow. And we all know that the economics is based on population, and if we don't have the population in CNMI, we're just gonna keep going downwards, right? So I mean, I don't know. Maybe work with the commerce and all these other agencies that are receiving these federal grants that have deadlines for infrastructure, that we can at least try to fight with those numbers from that end.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I did submit the CW plan on behalf of our governor on Friday, and in the plan, I did include language that expressed the amount of projects that we have ahead of us, the amount of money for each project, and that the fact that most of those are federally funded. I did include that the timelines for these projects are, dwindling, and the fact of the matter is we don't have enough construction workers to do those jobs. And it echoes the challenges they have in America right now as well, with also having not having enough construction workers. It's across our nation. And I did include language in there that would also pretty much state that with our data, we know that if we took every single graduate from every single program in any entity on our islands, we still would not meet the gap that losing all of our foreign workforce would create. We need more workers here present, whatever whatever they are, in order to be able to meet all of the deadlines and be able to spend all of the money that we need, that is given to us for these projects. I did echo those sentiments. The TLC, I think, is what you're referring to with the temporary labor certification delays that you're describing are a big issue because we do not have control over it. It's based on the state side. I forget which state it is, but I know Guam does have the ability to do that temporary labor certification, and we do want to have the same ability to do that because it is close to home, and we know it's just faster processing when it's a smaller pool of people as well. And so, yes, I echo all of your sentiments. Those are things we did discuss, and he is aware of the concerns of our community in that way. So thank you.
Rep. Castro.
Thank you, Secretary and team. I just recently, I just want to remind the members and the Department of Labor that we shouldn't only focus on graduates from NMC or PSS. There's a lot of non-completers out there, are people who maybe didn't finish high school. So we really need to rethink training and development and try to access those individuals as much as possible and get them into meaningful employment. I know the work is already being done, but having myself being a educator for several years, I know that both PSS and NMC is focusing on a specific segment, but we really need to look into all those non-completers and close the gap for them as well, because they can easily fill a lot of these jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Castro. Any further? Being there's none, thank you, Secretary, for the update, and thank you to your team being here and clarifying our questions. I know we didn't have any objection to the budget you submitted, and with that, I'll yield back to you for your closing remarks, and then we'll wrap it up.
I just want to thank each of you for giving us time to be able to explain the very many complicated things that come along in labor with respect especially to the hearing office, but also to the PUA process and all of that above. Thank you for recognizing the amazing work that this team has done. I inherited a really capable and professional group of people that I am so grateful to work with today, and as much as I miss you all as well. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Secretary Staffler. And with that, I'll now adjourn until tomorrow. Thank you.